Yes, sir. Sir has done his MTech in Environment Engineering from BVM College, Vallabh Vidyanagar, Gujarat, and post diploma in Industrial Safety from Technical Education Board, Gujarat. Sir has over 20 years of experience in the field of environmental management of the petrochemical and oil refining companies. Sir has served in a Bayer Polymers, in a Deepak Nitrite, and since December 2005 onwards, Sir is serving Reliance Industries Limited, Jamnagar and Dahej. In the Reliance industry, Sir has performed remarkable activities like he has worked with Jamnagar Refinery as a general manager. Presently, Sir at Dahej Manufacturing Division of RIL as a head environment, and Sir has played a key role in the implementation of environmental management system at JMD and DMD as well. Sir has done multiple environmental impact assessments and risk assessments at Reliance Industry and obtained EC for major projects like proposed 27 MMTPA refinery and downstream petrochemical special economic zone, Jamnagar, Gujarat. Proposed the petroleum and downstream petrochemical units in special economic zone SAGE, Jamnagar. 2100 megawatt captive power plant with natural gas as fuel in Jamnagar. ECCRZ clearance for berth, jetty, seawater intake facilities, expansion and debottlenecking of petrochemical complex of RIL Dahej. Sir is actively involved in the project finance from international financial institutions, lenders as per IFC guidelines. Sir is working as MR ISO 14001 2015 in SAGE Refinery, Dahej. Sir is involved in the implementation of Sustainable Development Program and preparation of report as per GRI Z4 guidelines. Sir has demonstrated the site environment management system at national, international level and won the various environmental awards for the site. Sir has received the Apex India Green Leaf Lifetime Achievement Award 2020 by Apex India Foundation, New Delhi, for contribution in the field of environment and preservation Mother Earth. Sir has made the lectures presentation on various environment related subjects in conference organized by Directorate of Industrial Safety and Health, Gujarat State Pollution Control Board and other institutes. So Sir has a very wide practical experience, and with this introduction, I request to Mr. Anand Suteria sir to continue the session. Welcome sir.
Thank you, Alpesh Rana, for the nice introductions. I am very thankful to Government Engineering College Bharuch and special thank to Dr. Waghela and his team for inviting me in this program. And as this is a FDP program under the Atal this training and learning program, so I hope you most of all are associated with this academia background, and thus you all of have made my job much easier because either one or two ways you are connected with this my topics. Like today's topic is environmental legislation in India, and so like in your chemical engineering also these environmental subjects are coming in some portion of environmental legislation. So I will discuss about this topic about the environmental legislations, how it will be interacting with the industries, like what will be the individual responsibility as a citizens of India. That all part we will discuss. And as Alpesh has told, after the sweet lunch, it will be slightly difficult for all of us to engage in this program, but I will give you assurance that we will make it this program jointly more interactive and more sessions, and you will also really enjoy like what are the problem areas are there from the industry levels, how it can be resolved, because nowadays you see in the most of the industries are having a well established environment departments, and each and every departments you will find the various verticals like the uh, greenhouse gas abatement programs and recycling, and in each all of these things, like even the clean process technology, in each sections we are recruiting these chemical engineers, and they have to play a vital role for protection of the environments. And like moving ahead with this program, just will freshen up ourselves. So I organized a small quiz on Kahoot platform. So I request, like I'll start these things. So you to log in on kahoot.it. Just I'll open up. Are you able to see the my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Uh, so you have to type this www.kahoot.it either in your laptop or in your mobile, and then you have to enter this pin number appear on the screen. Yes.
Sir, please,
Yeah. Now it is
please show
visible.
the slide once.
Yeah. Now screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Mm,
Screen is visible.
yes, sir, screen is
Yeah.
visible.
Right. So you have to type www.kahoot.it, and then you have to enter the game pin number, and then you have to type your initial name. Yes, thank you, Alpesh Rana. He is the first guy who has logged in into the system.
Every participants are requested to join this www.kahoot.it.
Please hurry up, guys. Now the count is only 10. I think we have participants more than 50.
Yes, sir. Okay, remaining faculties, please join.
Yes, friends, please hurry up. I think then we have to complete the lecture also.
All the faculties are requested to join this website which sir has displayed on the screen using this game pin. So please hurry up.
If you find any difficulty, then you can share. If you find any difficulty in login, something like that, I don't think it will be any difficult. It's a very simple these things. Please hurry up, friends. We wait for 20 counts and then we'll start. Or Wagela sir, you please suggest something if anything
Yes,
else.
sir.
So just we wait for 20 participants.
All participants kindly join the quiz on Kahoot.it.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I entered PIN, but my name is not showing on screen. Only the number is showing. That number is showing 2397437.
Okay. You remember this will be your login ID. I think you skip that entering your name.
Yes.
Yeah. No problem. We'll definitely recognize you by 2397437. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay. Guys, this is one of the way to get the total attendance who are the actually participating in the whole this online program. So please hurry up. Okay, sir, can we start? I think.
Sir, wait for 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay,
Uh,
no problem. Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
maybe participants are joining through mobile, so
Okay.
there may be a switchover problem because
Right.
maybe there is a problem.
Okay, no problem. We'll wait for
Mm.
2 to 3.
Okay.
Okay, now we'll start with.
Yes, sir. Start because majority are joining through mobile. So
Yes, yes, I
switch over
understand,
there
sir.
may be
So,
a problem. So we
right,
will
right.
start, sir.
Yes, yes. And others can give their answer on chat box also, if possible.
Okay.
It is, yeah.
Two.
First, the questions it is like match the following with the disease associated with this environment pollution. So you to match means water pollution. What will be the disease can be caused?
7437.
Time is very limited. Only 6 have given the answer. Correct answer is a 1B, 2A, 3D, and 4C. So you can see like water pollution cause the water-related disease, soil will cause other things, noise will cause the deafness. So these are the. Next is Padmaja is leading the position. The second question: when this Forest Conservation Act 1980 came into force? It's a very simple, like I asked this, when did the Forest Conservation Act 1980 came into force? Only the options, only one option was there regarding to 1980. The correct answer is 25th October 1980. I request participant to close their, mute their mic, guys. The Environmental Protection Act 1986 passed in March 1986 and came into force in which year? In which year and month, like? Now slightly tricky.
November.
Yes, correct. 19 November 1986.
Yeah, तो पत्ती जाए.
We again the 30-second time to give the answer. How much radius to be covered during the submitting the documents for the new project clearance?
Silent करो, silent.
કેટલા કિલોમીટર?
तो बड़े 10 किलोमीटर लगे.
Incorrect.
How many wetlands of Ramsar Convention sites have been declared so far in India? Because nowadays this wetlands is like highly debatable points across the India, mainly in the environment fields. So many of you are aware about this. How many sites have been declared for wetlands in Ramsar as per Ramsar Convention? Correct answer is 47 number. Yes, Rakesh is leading the position. The National Action Plan on Climate Change was formally launched on 30th June 2008. How many days we can store the e-waste as per e-waste rules? Yes, correct answer is 180 days. And for hazardous and other waste, we can store up to 90 days. Now only 2 questions are left. About how long does it take a styrofoam cups to decompose? For 400 years is a correct answer. And now the question, Rakesh and Dhaval, they are very close to these things. Which of the following temperature is optimal for the incinerators? Mainly I am here talking about the hazardous waste incinerators. Correct is in primary chambers we have to maintain around 850 to 900 degree, and in secondary 1050 to 1100 degree temperature. So congratulations Vinit Kumar. I request all participants to give a click cap for these winners. Second is Amit Marwa and then Alok Tiwari. Please share your account details with me. I'll credit base wishes and congratulations in your account. Thank you everyone. And now we'll start with the presentations. Can you open up your video camera, all the winners? At least we can see you in person.
Thank you so much for the nice
you.
quiz. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Amit Shah. Thank you, Vinit Kumar. Thank you, everyone.
Welcome, sir.
Yeah. Now we'll come to the presentation part. Are you able to see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So like next 1.5 year, 1.5 hour, we'll discuss about the environmental legislations. It is not a new things, like it is a part and parcel of our Indian culture. Like when we born and when we grown up to the age where we can understand what is right or not, what is wrong. From that stage itself, our parents are being teaching us like where the waste to be disposed, why this giving the watering to the plants it is important, why the planting of trees is important. Everything it is being uh, teaching, it is being given in the form of connecting with the religious. So this is a part and parcel of our Indian culture. Nothing it's a new. Only things what happens like we are a more obedience children or more obedience person at home, but sometimes when we are going in the form of industries or in the form of outside citizens, means where we are going, at that time sometimes we forget or sometimes we are creating the pollutions for the others. And the same thing it has been evidenced and stipulated as a responsibility of state as well as citizens for the nature and the living being in the constitution of our India under the various articles like Article 21, right to pollution free environments, Article 48A, where it is to protect and improve the environments and the safeguards for the forest and the wildlife of the country. Miss, where it is talking about everyone, miss, we have to preserve our earth, we have to preserve the forest, we have to protect the wildlife. And then in the Article 51A, where it has been clearly defined like fundamental duties of every citizen to protect and improve the natural environment, including forest, lakes, rivers, everything. And the real sense of environment for the protections, it has been started after this, you all knows, miss, after the Stockholm Conference in 1972, where India has also participated, and first times we talk at the world level for the protection and improvement of the environment. So from that, if we can say like 1972, the first journey means regarding the environmental means to create the some legislation for the protection of environment has started. In India, various act and rules are made like first after the Stockholm Conference, the first act was made in 1974 like water prevention and control of pollution. Then subsequently regarding when we educated about the water pollutions, what are the preventive measures are required, then we talk about the what are the control measures are required for the air. So that act was made in 1981, and the first time in 1986 where we talk about the general term like prevention of pollution, means whatever type of the pollution it is being created that we have to prevent. So that we can call as the EP Act, what in another terms we call as Umbrella Act. Afterward 1986, most of the legislation came in the form of rules under the EP Act. So most of the rules have been made or framed under the EP Act 1986. There are the other rules, acts also are there like Wildlife Protection Act 1972, Forest Conservation Act 1980, then public liability. So we'll discuss each act and important provisions in details. These are the various rules are made under the EP Act, like noise pollution rule, 2000 biomedical waste management rules. So in the 2016, there are the 6 rules regarding the waste have been framed under the EP Act. like biomedical, hazardous and other hazardous waste rules, e-waste, then solid waste management rule, construction and demolition waste management rules, and the plastic waste management rules. Then these are the others are there like battery management rules, then ozone depleting substance rules 2000s. Before moving ahead to the individual act and rule wise, like we need to understand what is the role of environmental authorities are there in the India at the central level or the state level. Like at the central levels, we have Ministry of Environment, Forest and the Climate Change. So their main role is making the policy, then enactment of the different act and rules, notifications, and accord the environmental clearance. The major roles whenever any new projects comes, if that project falls under the category of A, then we need to get the environment clearance from the Ministry of Environment and Forest. If it is in the category B projects, then we have to get it from the state level. Then the Center Pollution Control Boards, this is another agency that working under the MOFCC. They advising the central government for any matter concerning the prevention and control of water, air, and making the various guidelines, issuing the direction also to the any industries. Like you might have heard in 2015-16, the CPCB has played a major role for the implementing of the continuous emission monitoring systems. They have asked all the industries has to install the CAMS from their point source where they are emitting the pollutant into the atmosphere, that is to be connected with the central servers. All these things it is being centrally driven from the Central Pollution Control Board. State pollution control boards, like they are main authority for implementation of environmental statute at the state level. Also this enforcement it is ensured through the regional centers, means like if we talk about the Gujarat, then we have a Gujarat Pollution Control Board. Their head office at the Gandhinagar, and at the regional level also they have a regional offices. So in that particular area covered under the regional offices, they are monitoring whether this implementation of defined act and rules are there or not. This major functions of like planning a comprehensive programs for the prevention, that is a major role for the SPCB, then collecting the environmental informations. Another, they have a power to modify the effluents and emission standards. Like we know this, all the industry specific standard, it is being prepared by the Center Pollution Control Board, then it is endorsed by the Ministry of Environment and Forest. But State Pollution Control Board has also rights. They can make the standard more stringent while issuing the consent to the individual industries, because they only the better judge where this industry is located, whether it is surrounded by the locality, where what are the ecosystems are available. Based on that, they can make the more stringent standards, even though this is a standard published by the ministry. Then surveillance, okay, it is the regular part. Another good thing is like many of pollution control board have started, they are interacting more and more with the industries on the environmental awareness part. Like if we talk about this Gujarat, then Maharashtra has also started the environmental clinic program. Under these programs, just they are meeting with the industry through the associations. They listen the what are the problems it is are being faced by the industry, whether they can help them for providing some solutions. Sometimes they are organizing the awareness programs. They call the various technology suppliers. So this is a very good initiative taken by the Pollution Control Board to bridge the gap. Otherwise, earlier it was like either two sides, like one side it is a pollution control board, another side is a industries or the individual or the small scale industries, but it is like they never talk or they never interact each other. They are interacting only for this like permission related point, but they never come open up okay, this is a real problems I am facing. Then whether this technology staff, those who are dealing day to day in the environment field, whether they can help to resolve their issues. So now this is one of the good functions, and as per this major function of SPCB they are performing. Then enforcement of compliance of environmental legislations like environment clearance that is being issued by the MOF as per AI notifications. Then industry has to obtain the consent to establish. Earlier we call as a no objection certificate. So before the establishment of any industry, the industry has to obtain the NOC after getting the environment clearance. Even they do the expansion, modernization or any change in process or product mix, then also they have to go for the consent to establish and consent to operate. Similarly, for the waste management, they have to means industry has to obtain these authorizations. Here, these authorizations, if we talk about the biomedical waste rules, then all the medical centers, OHCs, occupational health centers, hospitals, they are covered under the biomedical waste rules. So they have to obtain the authorizations for the hazardous waste. So this is the first act came into India, means made in India after the Stockholm Conference, where the intent of this act to provide for the prevention and control of water pollution and maintaining or restoring the wholesomeness of the water. Under this act, the power has been given to the state and central government, like constitution of the central board and the state board, establish the state and central water laboratories also. So initially, like this implementation of Water Act, it was mainly deal by this water supply and sewage board. Then after later on stage, this pollution control board came into force at the state level. And the duties to mainly use this prevent any disposal of contaminated wastewater into the well or stream, or discharging any polluting matter into the well. These are the like restrictions came into under this act. Then the various permissions required under this act, like obtain the consent for the water. Then the industries can ask many informations from the industries if they find any water body or land is likely to get the contaminated or it is contaminated, so they can ask the information from the industry, and industry has to furnish their informations. Under this act, also it is power is given to the Center for Pollution, which all the boards and the ministry, they can enter in into the any premises of any industries for the inspecting. Otherwise, if you see these other like statutory bodies, still such powers are not given for the inspection of any industries. So here this pollution control board are more empowered. They can enter into the any industry's premises for the inspection. They can take the samples. They can take the samples, analyze into their laboratory. They can take the necessary actions if they find any deviations. So these are the various powers are given under the these rules act. This is like Watersheds Act 1977. So many of if you have seen your water bill, so this like to collect the levy on the collection of water consumed. If we see the history of Watersheds Act, when it was started to frame like how to take the levy from the individuals, then initially it was thought of like we'll take the charges based on the how much pollution it is pollutant discharge into the water. Then again this matter as well, it was very complicated. It was very discouraged how to calculate how much pollutants are discharged from the domestic level or the industry level. Then finally it was decided that we'll take this charges based on the water consumption, and then they have given under the rules like if we use the water for the domestic purpose, then these are the charges will be paid. If we use the water for the industry purpose, then these are the levy will be collected on per KL of water consumed. So those even our individual houses also, we are paying some tax to the municipal corporation. And these charges we are paying under this act only. If you thoroughly seen this receipt of a municipal corporation, in the corner it is written like this charges is collected under the Water Cess Act 1977. But the municipal corporation where the individual houses are there, it is very difficult to count, because nowadays these municipal corporations, they are putting the meter to the individual houses. So earlier they were collecting the lump sum charges for the all individual houses. Either it may be 450 rupees or 750 rupees based on the how small or big municipal corporation. And after the GST implementation, this will be the total charge collected by the authority, and some portion in terms of the water cess, it is to be given to the pollution control board. And if we coming to this industry, then under this rule, every industry has to provide the measuring device for the quantity of water consumed. Then water cess is not now it is not applicable after the GST implementation. But anyway, we have to file the returns how much water we consume on this monthly details, even in the yearly returns and all these things. So whenever if you have any question, you can just interrupt me and ask the questions. I request all of you, please. Then the third act, it has came into picture is like Air Act 1981. So in the Air Act and it is a Water Act, it is more or less similar. Only here in this act we are talks about only the air pollution control pollutions. What are the abatement control systems are required? What are the different parameters to be monitored at the individual level, means industries level. Then it also talk about the powers to the state level, central levels, then what are the permission to be obtained, what are the information is required by the board, then it is to be submitted. And these are the common features in the both the act and Water and Air Act. Like industry to comply the all direction of the pollution control board within the specified times, like industry to comply the all the conditions stipulated in the consents. Many a times what happens, like industry, they get the permission from the board, but then they also never takes the pain to read those conditions, like what are the conditions are given in my license or permissions, what are the actions I have to taken from my end. And if they forget to take necessary action, then it will create a lot of issue. You might have heard the so many news nowadays coming in this newspapers, even in the public domain. There are so many closure notices are issued by the pollution control board if they are not meeting the norms. And sometimes what happens, like when the industries has been established, at that time that nearby there is no residential areas were there. Later on, you will find that industry is covered with the residential areas due to the some there is no clear cut provisions under the like city boundary and the industrial areas. So sometimes it has been created. So recently you might have heard about this Arvind Mill also. The pollution control board has issued a closure notice, and then they went to the court. Then court has also asked to uh, take the necessary measure, and then they have to start the operation. Still that time they have to stop their operation. So this all the provisions and actions they are taken under the Water Act. So nowadays, like as the awareness is increased, we have to be more careful, and particularly like when you are dealing with the new generations. I request most of the chemical engineers, like we are taking those so many interviews while recruiting the people into the, whether on the process side or on the environment department side. But now the time is required to we have to give the practical approach also. At least we should give more focus on the environmental legislation part. What are the online platforms are available where they can get the informations. Similarly, not only this legislation, but for those aspects like for the CO2 emission. Okay, nowadays there is no norms for the CO2, but as part of this greenhouse GHG programs, so we have to educate and train the new generations also, like what is a GHG protocol, how it is to be calculated, what are the initiatives or what are the new initiatives can be taken up at the design stage itself. Just I would like to share one of the example, like for Reliance, like most of the petrochemical and refining unit is highly energy consuming units, and maximum like GHG emissions we are emitting, like in terms of fuel consumed. So we have started the actions before around 8 to 9 years, like starting from the clean fuels. Now our chairman has made the commitment by 2035 we have to go for the net zero carbon. So as part of that initiative, I think most of our coal-based power plant we are switching to the biomass. Then we are using for the clean fuel, and now we are coming up in a big way for the solar and other ways. So at least we can be net zero by 2035. The vision may be slightly here and there, but almost our road path is clear. So similarly, like when we started like this journey, 7 to 8 years, at least we took 1 year time to take all the site on the same platforms, like how to calculate the GHG emissions, what are the common parameters to be used, like some of the things where we can easily get the carbon content. Okay, this PLE I am using, so this is a carbon content, and immediately we can convert. But in the GHG also there are the 6 or 7 parameters are there for the NOx emission. If I am using this fuel in my GT, gas turbine, then which is a factor to be used. If I have to calculate the methane, then what are the factors to be used? If I uh, calculating the various emissions, whether it is starting from scope 1 to scope 3, then what are the activities to be covered? So this all aspect it is more important nowadays. Then the Environmental Protection Act 1986, like where we first time talks about the protection and improvement of environment, and for the matter connected with this. And this act has came after this Bhopal gas tragedy in the 1984. And in this, like here, the more it is empowered to the Pollution Control Board, like laying down the standards for the emissions and discharge of the environment pollutants, laying the procedures and safeguard. So you might have seen this when you search this pollution, this CPCB or MOF site, you will find a lot of procedures are available. Even though if you are going for this hot mix plant, then what are the different control measures you have to adopt? Then laying down these procedures and safeguard for the in case of the accidents, then permitting and restricting area. Under this, they have identified many areas like where they have specified, like if you have to go for the Himachal Pradesh and you have to put this refining operation, then it will be not permitted. Where it will be permitted only the less polluting industries. So across the India, they have defined the area which are the area what type of the industries can be permitted. All these things are it is more clear. Then preparing the manuals, codes, guides. So these are all these things are made under this Environmental Protection Act. If we talk about the duties, no industries is allowed to emit or discharge of pollutants in excess of the standards. Under this act, they only categorize the type of industries, whether it is a red industries or the large scale industries, then the orange, and based on that they will define the like inspection plan also, like if it is a large and red category industries there then then the pollution control board have to visit that facility once in a quarter. They have to see whether the whatever the emissions and discharge of pollutants are within the limit or not. Nowadays, this all online analyzers are provided, so there is no need But anyway, but all the online analysis is directly connected with the pollution control board. They can also see the real-time data. Then furnishing the informations to the authority and the agencies if an environment pollutant is discharged exceeds the prescribed standard. So these are the major duties and are defined under the Environmental Protection Act 1986. And these are the various rules what I told you in the beginning are made under the Environmental Protection Act, like manufacture, storage and import of hazardous chemical rules. Under the waste management rules, you will find all 6 waste management rules are made. Then emission standard, ozone depleting substance rules, then EIA notifications, then guideline to regulate the groundwater extractions. All these things are made under the Environmental Protection Act. Similarly, for the the rules made under the Environmental Protection Act will not go for this intent and all these things. But the way we are filing our annual income tax return, similarly, we have to submit the information in terms of the environment statement to the board also, like how much pollutants we have emitted into the atmosphere, how much pollutant we discharge into the waters, what type of the hazardous waste we have generated, whether it is within the permissible limit or not. All these things we have to submit in form of environment statement in the defined form like form 5 to the pollution control board by the 30th of September every year. Under these rules, again, this National Ambient Air Quality Standards have been formed, and nowadays, like AQI index is a very common terminology. It is calculated based on this all the parameters, and now you will find this AQI index for the city wise also, wherever such continuous emissions ambient air quality monitoring stations are installed. And if we come to discuss about the industries, then industries has to maintain this SO2 emissions in the ambient air quality is less than 80. This all are, it is a microgram. It is a typographical, it is come is milligram, but it's a microgram per meter cube. Only for this CO it is a milligram. Remaining all parameters are the micrograms and the nanogram. Then wildlife, from the act name itself, it is to provide the protection of wild animals, birds, plants. And under this, like the what is the major role of wildlife boards? Like earlier we were not so much aware about this act, even though the act it was there from since 1972, but there was minimum informations were available in the public domain. Now it is clearly like when you are carrying out the NEI study, and when we are covering the 10 kilometer of radius for the study area of the projects, and for the CRZ clearance we are taking the 7 kilometers from the both the side of the main our project location. And if it is any wildlife sanctuaries is available in that study area or any national parks, then definitely we have to go for the environment clearance from the National Board of Wildlife. Also, we have to carry out the impact assessments of various projects and activities, what will be impacted on our wildlife and its habitats. So now we will get all this where it is declared a sanctuary, what will be the coordinates, everything, whole details are available on this government website. So it is more easier, and now there are the minimum chances. Like earlier, what happens when the industry has been established, later on stage, industry came into industry knowledge came like, okay, we have established our industry in the some portion of the forest area, or some it may be in the wildlife sanctuary area. Now we have to relocate. So this is the case now, it will not be there because all these details is available with the proper coordinates And when you superimpose your project's locations and everything, you will get the clear pictures where you are located, how far available from the forest area or wildlife sanctuaries. Similar provisions are governed under this Forest Conservation Act 1980. And now coming to this waste management rules made under this Environmental Protection Act 1986. You might have seen, and particularly in this Ankleshwar and Dahej regions, many of times you might have heard the news about like industries, they are dumping their waste on the roadside instead of giving to the proper like recycling facility or the common TSDF facility. And this is also so such type of like violations cases where this pollution control board, they issue the closure notices to the industry. Earlier there were made this has been happened because there were limited resources were available, like earlier days only the 6 TSDF sites were available. Nowadays you will find the multiple TSDF site is available, multiple co-processing industries are available, multiple you will find the incinerator in the same area. So slowly all these things it is improving. Okay, we are not achieved the stage where we have to be, but all these jointly efforts by the industries and the pollution control board, at least in the particular Gujarat state, we are much better than compared to the other state. But here it is not a question of the comparison of between the two states, but the main intent, like we have to manage the waste as per the definition and the mode of disposal given under the rules. And as per these rules, like the occupier responsibilities, means the industry's responsibility, if we talk, then they have to obtain the authorization from the pollution control board. They have to maintain the record in the form number 3, and they have to submit the annual returns like similar to the environment statement in the form 4 by the 30th of June every year. Then the various clear-cut guidelines are also available, like how you to store your hazardous waste and other waste, up to what period you can store. You can store the hazardous waste up to 90 days. For the e-waste, you can store the electronic waste up to 180 days. Then when you are transferring your waste from one facility to the final disposal point, then what are the labeling you to provide on your containers or your bag. Also you have to educate the transporters, like if you engage the transporter for transporting the hazardous waste from one location to the other locations, then what are the important point the driver is to taken care during the transportation, that also we are giving in the form of 9 like tram cards. Also we are giving the training, all industries are giving the training. So this all the important provisions are given under the rules. Another one of the good things it is there, it is a manifest, means tracking of your waste. Like if you are transferring one waste from your premises to the common TSDF, then industry is not directly transferring the waste. They engage the transporter, approved transporters, then they give this waste to the approved transporter, then approved transporter will dispose this waste to the common TSDF. Then when this waste it is to be disposed by the TSDF facility, then they give the intimation to the occupier as well as the board. Okay, with this waste we have received from this industry and now it has been destruct as per the defined mode of disposal granted in the consent. So this all it is being tracked through the online waste manifest systems, and it's a really good systems. Like so now you will not find any cases where this waste you will find on the roadsides where it is being intentionally dumped by the industry. And accident reports, like many times like industries are not intimating the pollution control board, even though like when such incidents happens and later on stage when this information came into knowledge to the Pollution Control Board, they issue the so-called notice or closure notice to the industry. So it is always better whenever any incident is occur or likely to occur. Like for the Water Act also, when you see the any unforeseen events, it is occurred or likely to be occurred. Like if we take the example of the effluent treatment plants, and okay, when it is a unit, means you will find the various sub units are there, lot of machineries are there, and it is always be there like one point of time any of aeration tank is fail or some of the aerators are not working, then definitely it will affect the overall performance of your effluent treatment plant. So in such case, we have to intimate the board due to these reasons, like we are unable to operate our aeration tanks or the aerators for some specified duration, whether it is under maintenance or for the routine maintenance. So at least board can also help us for taking the necessary control measures. They can suggest us some of the other measures also. But if you hide the all such things, then definitely over a period of time it will be a very difficult for the industry also to survive from any such notices from the Pollution Control Board. Biomedical waste management rules, again it is for management of biomedical waste generated from these occupational health centers, then hospitals, laboratories, and under these rules again this all these industries, hospitals, laboratories, they have to obtain the BMW authorizations from the Pollution Control Board. They have to categorize their waste as per the categorizations given in the Schedule 1 and maintain the records how much BMW waste is generated, how it is disposed, to whom they have given this waste, to the which facility. All record it is required to be maintained and upload on the company's website also. So these are the similar like training we have to give to the healthcare workers and others. Then annual report, accident reporting. What are the waste it is generated, that we have to treat all the waste within the 48 hours durations. So these are the important provisions given under the biomedical waste management rules. And like during COVID also, the Pollution Control Board has started to give the permission for the waste generated during the COVID management facilities, like whether it is a care center is there or it may be the treatment center is there. All the COVID guidelines, it is published by the Central Pollution Control Board, and under as per those guidelines, this SPCB we are giving the permission to all the COVID care centers. What are the waste it is generated, that is to be given to the approved facility. And this collection and treatment record also we have to upload on the COVID biomedical waste management portal developed by the Central Pollution Control Board. E-waste, again the what are the electronic waste is generated, it is to be handled as per the rules, like mainly it is a computers, telephone, laptop, printers.
अच्छा सारा सर ने बताया मुझे, एक सर्कुलर बना दिया कि स्टूडेंट्स डायरेक्ट नहीं जाएंगे हेडक्वार्टर.
So all this electronic waste, it is to be handled as per the e-waste rules. Here again this bulk consumer definition, most of the industries comes under the definition of bulk consumers, so they have to give their electronic waste to the approved recycler and reprocessor only. But like individuals like you and me, so when electronic waste is generated from our houses, where we can dispose, generally we give it to this common scrap fellow, but that is not the right approach. And now as per this extended producer responsibility, as per the EPR, all electronic waste we can go to the main suppliers from where we purchase, and we give it to them for the final disposal. And I think this is a right approach where we can give, like suppose if our electronic item is not working, so instead of giving to this kabadi wala or anything, we can directly give it to the authorized collection center established by the or brand, or we can give it to the dealers, and then dealers they can give it finally to the recyclers and the reprocessor. So this is a new EPR has been extended under the e-waste rule, and we all have to follow. Then and then overall we can see the improvement into the management of the electronic waste. Otherwise, generally what happens, there is no any major things, but the way the scrap fellow they are handling the electronic waste, like they are doing the melting of electronic waste into the opals, then what are the pollutants are going into the atmosphere. That is a creating big challenge. And if we give it to the proper recycling facility, then it will be handled in a very proper manner. Then records and return storage that we already discussed, but more or less all the parameters in the all the waste management rule 2016, because in 2016 they streamlined all the waste rules. Earlier it was different. They would done the common terminology for all the waste. They have used the common terminology in the each rules. So now it is more useful for the industry level also to follow the each rules. They also use the like annual return system. Many of returns it can be clubbed together also, like so many things are given in a waste management rules, and that's why you will find the all 6 waste management rules. It was published in the 2016. Another is a solid waste management rules. Then now we have to, earlier it was called as municipal waste management rule. Now it is a solid waste management rule. We have to segregate this biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste into different category. Now it is more given the defined role of the municipal corporation, local bodies, then GIDCs, industrial estate, how this waste is to be handled, what are the systems to be followed. Everything it is given the clear under this waste management rule 2016. Another rules have it is introduced in 2016. Like earlier we are not having a much regulation on the construction and demolition of waste. So now this any industries, if they are constructing or if they are demolishing any building, then how this waste to be handled. And many times like new projects are coming up now, this in the new environment clearance also, where this Ministry of Environment and Forest, they are giving the conditions, at least you have to use a recycle concrete mix, or you have to use the recycle aggregates again in this much of percentage for your new construction projects. So there are so many conditions are putting under this waste management rule. Under C&D, all these things we have to segregate, like whether it is a concrete, soil, and others, construction and demolition of waste, how it is to be handled. And these are the like criteria it is given, like who will be called as a waste generator as per this, who generate the waste more than 20 tons or more in a one day, or 300 tons per projects. Like for the industry they have said like 300 tons per projects in a month. So those have to follow these are the criteria, like segregate the waste into the different stream, then submit the waste management plan, get the approval from the local authorities, and pay the processing and disposal charges. So everything it is covered under the new projects for like expansion of the new projects. It is covered under the C&D rules 2016. And this is one of the good initiatives. Like earlier we were doing the exchange for the plastic waste management, but after these rules where it is given the clear linkages from the manufacturing of plastic raw material to the usage, and also here the EPR is given like extended producer responsibility. So earlier, like even nowadays also, like we are RIL is a major plastic waste raw material producers. But earlier we were not covered because our role is not to make the any end use product. But now as per these rules, like we have to submit the details like what are our PVC, HDP and other plastic raw materials to whom we have given. You have to submit the details like this much of plastics raw material like PET, PVC we have given to these are the industries for the those who are involving in the packagings or making the multi-layer plastics. And the same return set is to be filled by the individual in the industries also. So this is a way they are doing the tracking. And similarly for the end producer also like how much plastic product they have produced it from these plastic materials. How much they recycle it also. So all these details it is to be filled under the plastic waste management rule 2016 and ensure that like packaging materials thickness everything it is been clearly defined into the and recycled plastics cannot be used for storing to ready to eat and foodstuff type of product. For duties of waste generated, like to minimize the generation of plastic waste and ensure the segregation at source, hand over the segregated material to the approved facility and pay the charges, uh, required charges for the disposals. Then recyclers also they have to get their clearances from the pollution control board. They have to submit the returns also to the pollution control board by 30th of April. So these are the important provisions, and now I think this is one of the good initiatives are taken under the plastic waste management rules, taking up the all the waste from the starting from the producing of the plastic raw material to the end products, and everything it is being tracked on a monthly basis to the quarterly basis by the pollution control board. Another rules like manufacture, storage, import of hazardous chemicals rules 1989, then amended in 2006, 2000. Sorry. So here it is mainly to like see the like when these industries are handling the lot of hazardous chemicals to prevent the accidents. What are the provisions are there? They will define the limit against each chemicals like how much they can store. What are the control measures are required, everything it is defined. Then some of the informations also they have to provide the information to the worker on site. They have to conduct the programs or training programs on the if anything will go wrong while handling of this hazardous chemical, then what are the actions to be taken. If anything goes wrong, then how it is to be informed to the pollution control board. If we are importing the hazardous chemicals, then we have to inform to the Central Pollution Control Board and CC also. All hazardous chemicals to be labeled in a proper manner. So all the provisions are given under these provisions, under these rules only, like site industry has to develop this on-site emergency plan. Minimum required firefighting equipments, control measures, everything it is defined under the these rules. Battery management rules, again, what are the lead acid type of batteries it is being handled by the industries, and similarly like uh, for the manufacturer also. So they have to submit the returns to the pollution control board. They have to give the used batteries to the recycler. Like many times we are seeing like when we are giving our used battery to the suppliers, like for our individual cases like our car batteries or our scooter or the bike battery, they are giving some replacement cost even though those 3-year warranty is over. But that cost is only because of when they are giving this lead acid battery to the recycler facility, they are also giving some money to the recycler. That's why this has adjustment it is being carried out by the dealer to with the individual customer. Similarly, for the industry case also, they have defined the bulk consumer definitions. When you are purchasing more than 100 batteries per annum, then you will be comes under the bulk consumer definition. So for industry also, they have to give it to do the only approved base, these things. And now as per this battery rules also, you can't dispose the electrolytes in any unhaphazard way or haphazard way. So generally, as per these rules, we have to give it the battery to the recycler in intact form instead of removing the electrolytes and neutralizing it and then putting here and there or to the any other facility. Instead of that, you have to give the your lead acid battery, whether it is a like flooded type or the common paste type batteries, you have to give as it is to the dealer, and then they will give it to the recycling facility. And if we take the example of other organized sectors, those who are taking the step beyond the statutory requirement, they are handling the similar way like other batteries also, nickel cadmium, then nickel metal halide, then alkaline batteries. Everything it is being handled in a proper manner. They have developed this recycling facility where we can give this battery other than this lead acid battery, because as per these rules only the lead acid batteries is covered. But for like Reliance and other many other organizations, they are handling these other batteries in a proper way. Ozone depleting substances. This is how we can minimize this ozone hole depletions. Like what are the ozone depleting substances can be used. All the refrigerant, like earlier we were used to use the R12, R22 is now permitted up to 2040. But now in the new facility, new expansion, new projects, mostly you will find this like R14A or R134A. These are the more like environment friendly refrigerant. It is being used in the refrigeration systems as per these rules. This and as per these rules also, like whenever if you are discharging any used or banned refrigerant, you have to give it to the only the approved facility, those who are having a recycling of those facilities. So these are the important provisions are given under these rules. Nowadays, like coastal regulation zone is one of the important regulation. Here we will slightly discuss in detail, because many a times like what happens, you will see the most of the industries are coming up in the coastal regions, and even in the particular like Gujarat, you will find the maximum area it is, you will find the largest coastline of 1600 kilometers. So most of all our industrial estate, it is located on the coastline only, and this is the important notification is there, and it is also required to understand, because under these rules only, under this notification only, industry has to go for the CRZ clearance along with the environment clearance. And the main intent of this legislation is to make the balance between the development need and the protection of natural resources, to prohibit and regulate the activity which are harmful for both coastal communities and environment. Sometimes you see the many of industrial activity are carried out on the coast, and over a period of time you will find see this fish catchment area is zero, because due to this lot of vibration noise, due to the lot of industrial activity movement of, you will find the vessels, everything, this all the fish will migrate from that area to the another area. So after all, it will affect the total impact on the community, those who are dependent on the coastline. So just it is because of maintaining the balance between the community, then environment, then production, then the development need. This all the aspects are covered under these notifications, and under this like ministry has defined the four zone, like what are the CRZ area we can classify, like CRZ when it is ecologically sensitive areas. So generally where the development activities are not permitted, like mangroves or other areas is reserve forest is there. So in those areas it is not permitted the any industrial activity. CRZ2 it is a developed areas. So we'll discuss is CRZ classification in detail. Like So like this is a CRZ like classification. This is if you see this is a LTL like low tide line, high tide line, then 50 meter it is another this NG no development zone, then 200-meter line from the STL and 500-meter line from the STL, and 12 nautical mile from the LTL to the seaward side. So seaward like CRZ1 classifications like where it is a eco-sensitive areas where there's no any industrial activities are permitted except some of the activity. But those areas like mangroves is there, coral reef, sand dunes. So in those areas, activities are very limited. CRZ1 is the intertidal zone, means STL and the area between STL to LTL. So these are the intertidal zone we can call. So this has been classified as a CRZ1B. CRZ2, earlier there were a lot of discussion and where there were a lot of NGT matters were there regarding this developed area, but this has been clearly defined in the CRZ notification 2019. Like it says that developed land areas up to or close to the shoreline within the existing municipal limits or in the existing legally designated urban area which are substantially built up with a ratio of built up of plots to the total plots being more than 50%. So like here there are some of the photographs are there like in the Chennai Sea. So these are already it comes under the developed area. Similarly like Mumbai, even though it is on the CRZ, but already it is developed and required facilities are there, approach road, drainage facilities there, sewerage mains are there. So this has been declared under the CRZ2 area. Earlier it was not given such clarity, so there were a lot of confusions were there. Even if you to go and put the some installation in the Chennai sea coastline, then every time you have to go to the take the satellite imaginary, you have to go with the local authority, get it certified, that this is covered under CRZ or not. Then if it is approved, then they recommend the project, then again goes to the ministry, again you will find a lot of queries from the ministry. But now this has been more given the clarity on the whole classifications. So now it is a very good from the industry and this development point of view also. So at least the clarity is there for the each CRZ classifications, and which will be helpful for the industry also while designing the locations or exploring the location for their projects or any other development activity, not only the industrial projects, even for the residential projects also. But this is a more clear classifications given under the CRZ classification notification 2019. Another this is given under the CRZ3 classifications. Now again this has been done based on the population density. Earlier there were some of the coasts were there where you will not find the population, but as it was covered under the CRZ, so you can't do any development activity. Now based on this CRZ, these three classification where the population density of is 2161% per square meter per kilometer square as per this 2011 census data, then it is classified as CRZ3A. If it is less than CRZ3B. And NDZ also it is defined like from STL to the 50 meter, they would define it is a NDZ, or wherever it is a creek is there, whatever is the less distance is there, they have to follow it there. And development beyond the 50 meter to the 200 meter or means NDZ it is there in the some of the case, whether we have to go for 200 meter to 500 meters. And what are the permissible activities are there that can be done in the either in CRZ3A or CRZ3B. Then CRZ4 like from a low tide to the 12 nautical miles towards the seaside, where we can like where we can do the like taking the actions mainly from the port, constructing the port and terminals, taking the water discharges, then taking the seawater intake. All these projects can be done under the CRZ 4A. Then these are the guidelines are given, like how to get the CRZ clearance. Whenever we want to take the CRZ clearance, we have to submit the required document, what are listed in this slide, like form number 1, EI report, disaster management report, CRZ maps. And now one good thing it is done by the all the state governments. They have made this coastal zone management plans. So now earlier the individual industry has to carry out the detailed CRZ demarcations. Now simply you can put your projects on the approved CZMP map and see what are the areas of classification you come into the as per the CRZ classifications. So there is no need to carry out the separate CRZ demarcations. Only you can engage the agency, approved agency, only for the verifications, because some of the areas where it required the field verifications for the demarcations, then and then you have to hire the agency. Otherwise, for the small scale projects, you simply superimpose your project means KML file on the approved CZMP map and see the where you falls under the which categorization of the CRZ classifications. So now it is a more easier and simpler process of the CRZ classifications. Then these are the documentations. Once you submit all this documentation to the Coastal Zone Management Authority based on the outcome of the marine impact, what will be the marine control measure plans, what will be the action plans, everything if you submit in detail, then they will recommend your projects to the ministry for the clearance. But after getting the clearance, this is a most important point is that we have to submit the half yearly compliance report, and that also we need to upload on the company's website. It is in the form of public domains and copy to the GCZMA. And similarly, the same reports we have to upload on the ministry website also, so anyone can see the all these compliance report uploaded by the industries or the any construction projects or any construction industries. Then this EI notifications means Environment Impact Assessment Notification 2016. Under this, all the new projects, all the expansion, all modernizations of existing projects or activity listed into the schedule of these notifications, and beyond this capacity they have to take the environment clearance. And even in case of any change in the product mix, even in the technology also, they have to obtain the prior environment clearance from the whether it is a ministry or the state level environment impact assessment authority based on the type of the projects. And this projects category has been defined based on the potential impacts on the human health and the natural and the man-made resources. And this is a process of EI, like how to get the environment clearance. First, project proponent has to submit the application to the ministry or the state level authority. Then they will do the screening whether it is a category, B or B2, because now the more clarity is there, so generally there is no need for the screening. By putting the all the while making the application online itself, you will get the directly you can go to the stage 2 scoping, and where you will get the you have to make the presentation to the expert committee. But nowadays generally they give the defined tour for the industry specific tour. Only in case of any specific changes is there, then and then they will ask for the presentations. Otherwise they will directly give the terms of reference on the industry specific. Then carrying out the EI study, baseline monitoring, then public consultation process, then appraisal, again to apprise the ESC committee regarding the projects, and then finally decision taken by the authority whether the EC is granted or it is rejected or call for the reappraisal. marine environments, like it is always, as I said, okay, most of the industries or major industries are located on the sea coast. So another important things, like while handling of any chemical or the oil in this Indian coast, so we have to take care about the plant, like in case of any spill occurs of the oil or any chemical, then what are the precautions to be taken. And as for this notification, the Indian Coast Guard is a nodal agency for this NOS DCP guidelines. And while handling of specific spill, particular for the oil spill, all industries should have the oil spill response plant, those who are located on the sea coast, and they are handling the any petroleum or the petrochemical product. Another thing, parallelly, this national contingency plans means when the spillage is more than 700 tons, then the Indian Coast Guard will come into force for acting as a nodal agency, and they will take care about the whole spill management plan. And up to the tier 1 spill, like less than 700 metric ton of spill, the industry has to uh, equip with the various oil spill equipment plants like booms, pads, oil skimmer, then oil boom, oil tugs, everything they have to be. And like if I talk about the Dahej regions, the major industry, they have engaged the sea care facility. It will be the mutual aid common facility. Whenever any spills occurs, that facility or that agency will directly come to the particular location and take care for the control measure as per the defined oil spill defined into the oil spill response plan. Another things like as per this, also this industry has to, if they have been given the permission to discharge the effluent into the deep sea, then they have to meet the all the norms. They have to arrange the sampling systems. They have to take the samples through the third party laboratory. Also they have to carry out the marine environment monitoring at the regular interval and see whether any impacts it is creating because of discharge of treated effluent into the marine sea or not. Everything it is covered under the marine part. Then public liabilities, this is one of the good act. It is provide the protection to the public, like before 1991, if any accidents happen into the any industries, and due to that, if anyone is affected, like then generally what industry can do, they pay the only the compensations available under the workmen compensatory or the any other act to the only the worker working in their premises. But what about the public? And sometimes there are many cases it happens, like even though nearby publics or the any damages is occurs or the person is affected, then nobody is liable to pay the compensation, either the government or the industry. And sometimes industry will have also raised their hand, I don't have money, whatever it is happens during that incident, I lost so many things. So for avoiding all such things, this government has published the Public Liability Insurance Act, and after 1991, the all industry has to take the PLI policy based on their paid up capital investment. And what are the insurance premium is decided by the insurance company. Same insurance premium they have to deposit into the Environment Relief Fund established by the Government of India. The main purpose of to get the parallel amount into the Environment Relief Fund, sometimes in the some of the incidents where this liability is decided by the court and they said okay, this much of amount it is to be paid, and that exceed the liability beyond this insurance policy whatever it is defined, then in that case the government will give the money from the Environment Relief Fund to the industry, and finally in turns it will be given to the affected persons or whatever the property damages occurred due to that incident. So that is a very good initiatives by the government of India for the protection of this public liability, or for the mainly for the publics in case of any incidents is occurred. Then NGT, so there is no need to discuss, like nowadays this NGT is a more powerful tool in India for the implementation of the all the environmental acts, and many times you will see the lot of decisions taken by the NGT on the various point or the various incidents, and mainly for the enforcement of the, and they will take the actions against the board also as well as the industry also. These are the various monitoring and compliance is required, and as per this all the rules we discussed, like regular monitoring and measurements carried out by the MOF approved laboratories, then compliance report to be submitted to GPCB, ambient air quality data it is required to be monitored. Industry has to set up the AAQM stations, and that AAQM stations real-time data also to be connected with the State Pollution Control Board and the Central Pollution Control Board server. Similarly, the industry has to carry out this fugitive programs, like monitoring of the fugitive programs. They have to undergo for the leak detection and repair program. They have to take the actions to maximize the recycling. So nowadays, like if you see the industry specific store, like where the red category industries is there, in store itself, the government are specifying there you have to recycle the treated effluent this much of percentage. So it is a very good initiative taken by the government. So since project conceptualization stage itself, industries are taking the steps for the recycling of treated effluent. In a long term, it is going to help to industry only for minimizing the water requirement. But from the compliance part also, like from the stipulation also itself, it is mentioning that this much of percentage you have to recycle. So from the design stage, this aspect it is considered. So later on, there is a minimum modifications and expansion is required in the effluent treatment plant. And there are various penalty provisions, so we'll not discuss in detail. So thank you. This is a like a brief of points about all the legislations which we discussed. If you have any query, then we can.
Participants can ask the question directly to Mr. Anand sir. Any questions from the participants?
Participants can ask any questions, like because now the industries also require a lot of support from the educational institutes. If we talk about like nowadays, like all industries generally they are going for the adequacy of their air pollution control equipments. Earlier we were limited only to the effluent treatment plants. Now these industries, they also themselves want to see means how their ESPs is performing, whether it is working as per the design guideline or not, whether their scrubber is performing well or not. So where we need the support from all the institutions also, all the industries, where we can work together and find out some improvement into the existing operations. So these are the actions it is being done beyond this statutory, even though there is no requirement to give this adequacy of the APCM, except certain cases where if we are going for the product mix change without any getting the environment clearance and all these things. But further there are improvements like energy efficiency improvement programs and everywhere, like so we also check every industry they are doing such job and they are working with the various institute.
Any questions?
Participants, you can ask the question.
Okay, so we conclude the session here. Sir has nicely explained about the various environmental legislations, for example, for wildlife, for forest conservation, for water pollution, for air pollution, for hazardous and other waste, for biomedical waste, for e-waste, for plastic waste, for batteries, for coastal areas, for marine environment, and also sir discuss about the public liability insurance in brief. So sir has given the whole picture about the regulations existing in the India, and after attending this session, we can say that we are not free to do anything with the environment. And in the beginning of the lecture, sir has already told that all these things are in our culture also. So now it is in our hand whether we have to follow our culture or law. Okay, but by any way, we have to protect the environment. And sir has nicely explained the various regulations and acts regarding the environment. So thank you very much, Anand sir, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation and delivering such a nice talk on the various regulations. And with this, we conclude as a this session is over. And thank you very much, sir. Again.
Thank you
sir.
very much. Thank you very much, and special thanks to the Waghela sir, who was behind me. Thank you very much.
Okay. Next session, there will be a tea break from 3:30 to 3:45. So the third session will start at 3:45.